probably sharper than anyone in all of Sidnie. Truth be told, he thought both his eyes and ears were the sharpest in the whole kingdom. "What the fuck is that?" he asked Chris. "What's what?" Chris was the same age as Brighton, and they'd known each other for as long as either could remember. "Them ships out there. You don't see 'em?" "Hell no, I don't see 'em. Why you think I hang out with you, Brighton? Because your personality is so good? I'm here because you're the best lookout in the city." Brighton punched her in the shoulder, a light thing because he hadn't taken his eyes off the ships. Brighton and Chris lived on the streets, and right now they were sitting on top of one of Sidnie's condemned buildings. Most other people would have been far too frightened to climb up to the roof, but Brighton and Chris knew Sidnie's underbelly like they knew themselves. They understood every false step on nearly every roof in the city. "That's too many ships," Brighton whispered. And it was. Sidnie had a port and ships came and went, but never this many, and never in a line like that. "How many?" Chris asked without looking up from her game of cards. 10. Chris did look up then. "Quit lying, boy, or I'm gonna beat you blue. There ain't 10 ships coming this way." "You'll hear sirens soon." Brighton was hardly paying attention to his friend. He couldn't pull his eyes from the ships. "This isn't normal." He stood up. "What do we do?" Chris asked, standing up and forgetting about the cards. "Hell if I know." "Boys are idiots," Chris snapped. "Come on, we need to get away from the port." The two left the top of the building, racing down the streets they knew so well. "Where you going?" another street urchin called to them. "Run!" Brighton shouted back. "Have you ever seen Sidnie before?" Rendal asked. The sun hurt Mason's eyes. He hadn't seen it in long days, having been kept below in the cages. He was dirty and exhausted, but he knew he had it better than the other people he'd seen. They were being drained. "No," he answered the mage. "It's really something, isn't it?" Mason had to admit, even if only privately, that the mage was correct. The city spread out before him, large towers jutting into the sky. Its buildings dwarfed New Perth's, and Mason found himself amazed that they could construct such things. Reading his mind, Rendal said, "They used magic, the same magic New Perth refused." A siren was blaring. "They're gathering their military." Rendal stood at Mason's side, no grin on his face. Mason didn't know what kind of magic he was using, but the mage's eyes were red. "They've spotted us, and we're both a large force and unexpected. They'll be ready for battle by the time we get there." "A city that size," Mason's voice trailed off, and he gazed at the mage. "You're going insane. Do you realize that? You're losing your mind." Rendal still didn't smile. His face was focused. "No, I'm not. You may be right in what you're thinking, though. A city of that size would be very difficult to overtake, even given my powers and my army. But I won't be doing it by brute force, my dear Mason." "What are you going to do?" "I'll show you when I'm finished," the mage answered. "Harold, please take our guest back down." Harold grabbed Mason roughly and pulled him away. Rendal stood alone on the deck. He was only partially there, though. Only his body remained. His mind was in Sidnie, watching the military scramble to ready itself. Sidnie's prefect was coming down from his tower, his aides having alerted him to what was going on in his kingdom. Rendal had heard of the man, Sidnie's prefect. His name was Lawrence Liddell, and he was newly ascended. Sidnie's prefect had to be proficient with magic, and usually was the greatest user in the kingdom. They had actually followed through with Rendal's plan without knowing it. Rendal couldn't gain access to the man's mind without alerting him to his own power. Rendal had no doubt that he could infiltrate the prefect, but as he told Mason, this wasn't a brute force mission. Harold returned from jailing Mason. "Sir, what would you have me do next?" "I'm commanding the other ships to remain at this distance and go no closer to shore. Only ours is going forward. I want you to let the men on board know that. Also, they're going to inspect the ship, without a doubt. Under no circumstances is anyone to make it to the cages. You understand?" "I do, sir. No one will see them," Harold answered. Rendal's eyes returned to their normal color.